Hey, Dev here. Let's talk about League of Legends. More specifically, why I quit and have grown to hate the game over time. Sit back and spread your cheeks for this rant video because I'm going in hard as to why this game isn't fun or worth playing anymore. But seriously, I'm gonna try to keep this as serious as I can. Let's talk about the thing that bothers me the most the champions. Champion designs and reworks have really bothered me and have contributed most to why I fizzled out and stopped playing as much as I used to before ultimately quitting. Overloaded, raw stats, mobility, whatever you want to call it, it was a problem for new and reworked champions. They weren't simple and easy to grasp, had clear weaknesses, or really fit within League's simple champions before. I think my first encounter with this is when Gnar was released. And this is just the start of the crazy designs that hurt older, less popular champions. I mean, look at this. When he was released, this was a read, and I know it's not the first time a champion had different abilities depending on form, like Elise, Nid, and Jace, as examples of this, but boy, this champion felt like the top of the hill. He had passives inside of passives. It's crazy how much this champion gets. Let's just take a look at what this champion does. A ranged champion that was hard to catch when small, a 3-hit passive with percent HP, a jump back that gets extended if you hit a unit, hard to fight when Mega, having 2 stuns while still having a weaker hop in the Mega form. And you think your best time to fight him is when the champion is coming out of Mega and turning back to small. Well, nope, he's got a range slow and a move speed coming out of Mega form. The real icing on the cake is giving an Orianna tier team fight changing ultimate. This champion is cracked, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Compared to champions released before this, it's too complex. Constantly getting more complex isn't a problem, but when you ignore champions or straight up change champions that didn't need to be changed for the sake of it being complex, I have a problem. Not all champions need to be complex or hard, and it's no secret that new champions are just better than old ones. Aphelios, Kai'Sa, Sylas, Set come to mind. These champions are insanely complex or just have really good stats. I'm not bashing newer champions altogether. They actually do manage to release something fun without it blasting everyone away like Team Rocket. Thresh, Nami, Neeko, Vel'Koz are what I can name off the top of my head. Yeah, they had problems, but not like Zoe, Yuumi, and Senna. I mean, damn, I feel like Sylas just released and they reworked his enchanted autos like 3 times or something. Like I mentioned, it started with Gnar, maybe Yasuo, but in between Yas and Gnar were 2 really great champions, Vel'Koz and Braum. It's a huge power creep. Champions are more complex and unfun to fight against. Be honest and say Qiyana's permanent invisibility is fun to fight. It's more like whack-a-mole where you're the one getting whacked. And not all new champions were dumb. Old ones were too, because I remember a long time ago whacking towers for HP was kinda busted. Honorable mentions to AP Xin Zhao and old Sion Ultimate. But instead of doing wacky things like AP Varus, it's now like new champions just beat you in large just by being that champion. And it isn't fun to play something like Maokai into a newer champion like Ornn. I mean, maybe old Maokai with his old ultimate might be useful, but damn, dude. What is this all? Compared to Ornn, I mean, why play a weaker champion? On to remakes. These remakes have the same problem as new champions, but now they literally replace the champion instead. The best champion remake was Sion for sure, but you can't forget the Sion int strategy of just running into towers for damage. But overall, it was an improvement from stunning people running up and exploding on them with DFG. I mean, champion remakes are so inconsistent with how they're played out. Take Katarina. I feel like that rework came out of nowhere for no reason. Sure, Kat was strong, but it wasn't game-ending strong. Katarina had weaknesses like hard CC, lane phase. In general, she was a champion that was feast or famine. As a side note, getting rid of all point-and-click CC wasn't all good. And you can argue skill, but Taric used to dumpster Cat because she was going to get hit with a stun no matter how many times she hopped around. I feel like the Cat changes were so out of the blue. Mind you, there was champions like LeBlanc who had point-and-click CC that dealt with Cat, silence on her Q, and even despite champions like Cass who also had a silence on Q, still had a worthy matchup for old Katarina. Old Kassadin didn't dumpster people like the new Kassadin one does. He's a level 16 monster, and it seems like even if you beat him down, it doesn't matter much. Old Kassadin felt just like how he was intended, an anti-mage silencing and beating down mages for lane and ganking with mobility to help his team after he bullied mid. Cat, a cleanup burster. LeBlanc dumped her kit into your ADC that you were trying your best to protect. We can argue semantics over if these changes were good or not, but like I said, it's so inconsistent with reworks, and really kills the joy people had for these champions. I feel bad for old Urgot players, you know? They had to relearn a new champion with the name Urgot, and they probably don't like it as much, or have the skill or desire to play the new rework. Maybe they just, I don't know, move on to newer champions. See what I'm getting at here? When was the last time you saw Skarner? That rework is crap and it still is. Now back to Cat. I used to play loads of Katarina. New Katarina feels like a totally different champion, for better or for worse. Like, imagine all you did was play Talon back in the day. Blink, silence, and burst. Then they changed how he plays. Even though you spent all that time learning to play him a certain way, now you gotta start over. Now you're hopping walls for some reason, wondering why he was changed. He wasn't without weakness. This was back when armor items meant something, but more on that shortly. I get the game has to change for it to be fresh and new, but relearning the same champion is junk and gives no motivation to play it if the champion isn't meta or very good at something. God help your soul if they fucked your champion with a rework. Items feel uneventful or very clumsy to use. Items change, right? They come and go like Heart of Gold, Innervating Locket, and Boot enchantments. These were great items. They hardly ever needed nerfs. The main problem with new items is just how many of them have to do something special, instead of just giving stats to stop Talon from one-shotting you, or unique auras that you don't have to actively pay attention to. They didn't need to have an active to be useful. I'm not talking about me being a smooth brain and I can't handle all the active items. I mean, having 4 or 5 active items just isn't fun. I've never seen anyone care much about juggling one ward item, Mikhail's Redemption, and Iron Solari Shield. The items are playing you instead of you playing your champion. It's overly complex, like I mentioned with champions. They almost realized this with Edge of Night. They turned it from an active to a passive unique. Active items have their place. Blade of the Rune King, and however you feel about it, Zanya's being a little too good in my opinion, but its purpose is there, to activate the moment you need it. Some of these items can be fixed, or easier to use, but I'd have to make a separate video trying to fix some active items, but it's possible to make it easier to use while still having the same usefulness. Altogether, I miss building offset items to do something cool. Banner of Command, ZZ Rot, Force of Nature. Hell, I liked it when Spirit of the Elder Lizard was a jungle item that ADCs and supports could buy, however broken it was. Items change and they add and remove items, right? I get it. But there are some items that just didn't need to be touched. I can't remember without looking it up, but they fucked Infinity Edge and had to unfuck it because ADCs were more worthless than they are now at the moment. And that's a fact. Unholy Grail, for example, was an AP MR item that was great against bursts like LeBlanc, while also having a bit of damage and mana regen. Now it's a weird shield healing buff item. I don't understand the reasoning there. These sound like 2 different items. Item changes are inconsistent, and some of them are just terrible changes, like Feral Flare stacking junglers. It feels like they don't even play their own game. I'll get to the new support items and stuff, but build paths are just not as fun anymore. Stacking actives on every item slot isn't great, and I've never heard anyone say, wow, my 4 active items sure are fun to use. I don't want to sound like a league boomer, but I remember when supports, all they did was ward, and that was their purpose. They spent most of their gold warding and helping their team with vision. I have an extreme opinion on that. You can argue with me on it, but I think it was a good thing. There is no reason for supports to gain that much gold. The new support items, like I mentioned earlier, it creates this problem you got now where Brand, Vel'Koz, Lux, and just about any mage, CC, or tank like Shen can hang out bot lane. Most supports are supposed to have great abilities and base stats, but like the aforementioned champions, they're bad without items. But now you give them the ability to make more gold than they should have at playing as support. And this creates this weird limbo where Morgana, a mid laner by tradition, is hanging out bot lane because Frostfang, or whatever the fuck new support item they named it this season, is giving her easy gold and damage. Like, yeah, being a ward bot was total crap sometimes. Spending all 300 gold of your first back on wards was bad, but I think with trinkets and it being a team effort to ward was good enough. You can spend that money on items now. Excluding pinks, you were set to buy whatever you wanted. And when you give too much gold around for supports, it creates this loop for champions where they can't be buffed or they'll be too good support. It's annoying if you like to play champions like Brand and Zyra. I remember when Annie was support and they gutted her. Sure, she mostly goes mid now again, but my point stands. Weird champion support isn't inherently bad, but it makes it hard to balance a champion in multiple roles when you're giving out gold. And it's fine to have more than one role, which I'll explain later, but it's terrible to balance this way. Champions that need it aren't getting the buffs they deserve for the role you want to play them in, because new Korean strategy, or just making a new champion that does what the old one does now, but better, just because free gold. Anyway, bot is in shambles. The whole lane feels uneventful except for scuttle fights and dragons. If God forbid they're in a mage's bot, it can get wild and very one-sided, and that plays into the 10 to 20 minute games that you get. I think overall bot is weak beside objectives. I used to enjoy playing Graves ADC and just fighting almost every time our ultimates were up. Our objective back then was to beat the fuck out of the enemy bot lane. Now I feel like bot aggression is down because you gotta stay safe for dragon or rotate for scuttle. It used to be a real slugfest bot lane when you didn't have to have a mage ruining the bot lane because they're getting too much gold. But otherwise it was the most PvP of all the lanes. Now you get weird interactions like Sonateric because gold gen items, and that's just odd and not in a good way. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy odd picks. Odd picks were fun. One of my fondest memories of League is a 5-stack team and we all picked supports. AD Leona top beating Darius. I went AP mid Alistar and was a real threat. I think we had Nautilus jungle and ADC Thresh. The odd picks and builds were much more expanded than they are now. And Riot picks and chooses how you should play a champion. I mean, am I the only person that notices that the build path for every champion is like super narrow now? I remember doing Abyssal Staff and Rylai's Crystal Scepter as pseudo tank Ahri, and then next game I could go DFG Deathcap Nuke, and then I could turn around and go Lichbane Frostborn Auto Ahri. Fun picks and fun builds used to be a thing. Criddle Sticks, AP Xin Zhao, unkillable AP Gangplank, AP Rengar yelling at you for huge damage. I mean, it was fun to do these things, even if you lost to someone like AP Rengar, and yes, it was pretty hard to fight. Next game you would try and find out that it actually worked pretty well. I don't know when it happened, but I stopped seeing unique ways to play champions and builds. Like the odd picks, it was fun for a while, and now it was troll to do stuff like that. It was reportable, and you can't do it anymore without tilting your team or making them give up before minions have spawned. It probably has to do with the rank system and how important they made rank positions seem. The game just stopped being fun. Between rank being too serious, which I'll touch on rank here soon, and champions being made into what they aren't, or forced into what Riot thinks they should be, is aggravating. I feel like everyone who still plays is just holding out looking for that one fun game, or they're addicted to the rank grind. Well, what is fun for a MOAB? A multiplayer online battle arena, right? Teamfights. Teamfights are why this game is fun. ARAM is a game mode based on the best aspect of the game, but you look at how the normal game plays and think, why is this any fun? Fun game modes were great, and I hate that they consistently get rid of fun game modes like Domination on Crystal Scar, Twisted Tree Line. Just because not a lot of people play them doesn't mean you have to force people into playing ranked and normals. ARAM being permanent is probably a huge contribution to the player base. They even do item balances for ARAM now, I think. URF on rotation, and playing that Nexus Bliss was the most recent actual fun I can remember. It's no wonder why they put these game modes like Blitz on timed events. Otherwise, people would have figured out the main Summoner Rift is terrible. Even they said themselves that they have bad player retention when they get rid of Earth. And that's what they want. They want you to be addicted to the rank grind, like I was. I'm one of those people who cared about rank, but that's all I cared about. Rank used to be the game mode you'd run once you've gotten comfortable with a few champions, got your expensive room pages, and wanted to play to win. If you were Gangplank or a support player, you would get gold per 5 quints. If you were an OG Ahri player like me, you'd get magic pen glyphs. Elo was just a number. I remember not caring about it so much, and only went into rank to test how good I was with Ahri. But no one could see your Elo anyway, if I remember correctly. I played and improved and would get into big name matches like Hotshot GG if he's still around or anyone remembers. But once they introduced the new rank system, in Season 3 I think, it really messed with my mentality about how important this game was and where the fun was. I mean, yeah, I was toxic like a lot of people. I wanted to win. I did everything short of getting live coaching to help me improve. I played at a very high level, and I played many games, and this is coming from the guy with 99 all stats on RuneScape after Divination came out. I played a lot of games. I no-lifed this game. I wanted to win. I wanted to be top tier, and anyone who was in my way or didn't understand would get some verbal abuse, if you know what I mean. I called people slack-jawed, knuckle-dragging apes, and this wasn't good for me getting better at the game, or for anyone, not on my team, not on the enemy team, no one. I'd find myself at StarCraft levels of actions per minute without even leaving Spawn Fountain. I dropped out of Diamond and tilted my way all the way in Season 3 to Plat 2 or something. It just became too important. Ranked mattered. You didn't want to be some gold idiot who couldn't get anywhere else. There was some elitism. I noticed more people typing. For better or for worse, your team wanted to win more than having fun, and I was that way. Now I like winning. Games before the large changes like Dragon and Rift used to be much longer. Personally, I liked the longer games. There was some pushback. People would gather around their ADC and do their best to protect them. An ace for one side. Your team comes back and aces them. Next fight is at Baron. Most of your team died, but your support limps away and your jungle hero smited Baron before he died. These games were fun. There was pushback. The enemy team didn't just fold under towers once you stacked enough raw dragon stats. It didn't matter what champion you played when your team is a stat stick monster group who'll kill the enemy team without losing a single man, all while under tower. I could probably do a video just on dragon stat stacking alone and why it's terrible and not really good for the game. Now these newer games are just one-sided push. 5-stack dragon and rifts is unfun to play against. Sure, you messed up and didn't get them, but back before there were these crazy Baron minions, you still could put up a fight. And I don't mean they get Dragon Soul and your jungle steals the Elder Dragon the next time it comes up and you guys do a huge comeback. I mean, can you remember the last time your team did a huge comeback? Of course you can, because that's where the soul of the game is. That's the most fun, the pushback, the most memorable. There are games like this, yes, but the exception isn't the rule, or they're just far and few between. Winning like that was amazing, and then you would go up in rank, and that's addictive. This sadly just doesn't happen anymore. These shorter games make it a one-sided choke most of the time, and that's sad because the most fun I've ever had playing are the hour and 20-minute games. Death timers were the worst, but if you had Karthus or someone with revive, you could stall it out, because there was no Baron minions tanking 7 tower shots. Champions like Ziggs were played to give your team some time to scale up, because you could clear 2 lanes at once. You could actually say, hey team, we're scaling, and not look like an idiot. I suppose you can say that longer games weren't realistic. Spending an hour in a match wasn't healthy. But I'd much rather that than get stomped out at 20 minutes while the enemy team is just inherently stronger because of dragons and more gold because of pure tower plates because they got early game champions to rotate around and get rift. Late game picks used to be the move to make. Vayne used to be what you would put your whole team's hopes into. If your team could hold out, Skarner was a great champion at these late game picks that could help your team win the game or get some control backs. I can't remember the last time I saw him since his rework. I mean, shout out to the people who can just have fun and play normals, but I haven't played in at least 8 or more months. Before I picked it back up, I didn't even play Season 5, 6, 7, and most of 8, and that's sad coming from a longtime player. Hell, I even drove hundreds of miles to watch LCS with my friend. It's sad how they changed every aspect of League, and you know the game isn't fun anymore when you win and you're not happy. You're relieved, you're like, whew, we won, as you wipe sweat off your forehead. Losing feels almost the same. I had the mentality, it's just like, wow, we finally lost, now I can move on, instead of having a blast along the way. I kind of wish I can get some of that magic back, the fun, the builds, the discovery, trying AD Soraka and not getting flamed or having someone whine about it. Having my top laner 0-8, but I didn't care. No one cared because he was singed, killing the minions at their spawn. It was funny, and we still managed to win while having fun. The game is just too serious now. Champions used to be simple to play with many build paths and ways to play in-game, and they traded it for overloaded high mobility stat checks with very singular build paths. I could go on and on about how dog shit the client was and is still. The server location changed that doubled my ping, the smurfs, the toxicity. I mean, I never played a multiplayer game that if you argued with someone online, they'd waste their time just dying over and over. I've never seen that before or have since. This is the only game I've ever seen people do that. And so I quit, because I wasn't having fun. You can pick any of the reasons as to why it became stressful to play. Either the items or the ranked, or the champions, or the shorter games in favor of highly broadcastable games for esports and streaming. I mean, no one can argue with me that they balanced the game around pro meta play, but they don't seem to care much about what was fun anymore and only care about what's popular. They really turned into a corporate game developer instead of passionate gamers themselves just trying to have fun. I won't regret the fun I've had, but I really traded my motivation to play for a stupid border and a load screen, and hurting my interest in the game. But it was going to happen sooner or later with the direction of the game itself. I feel it was inevitable. Now I favor fun games over anything else, playing games I missed like StarCraft, Metro, Divinity. But the one game I'll always miss is the old League, playing from scratch. My first couple of champions I ever liked were Cho and Mundo. Learning and improving was great. It felt like you accomplished something. The first time they did the snow map, and modding my skins to be crazy colors, which now I guess is bannable, to doing crazy stuff like Teemo Jungle smiting their buff right in front of them. Being full build ADC Thresh whacking the enemy Veigar for 1100 damage and watching him walk back to the fountain because he was having none of that shit. I miss all the good times I used to have trying out stupid stuff with friends, making friends on the enemy team and queuing up with them because they played a sick AP Pantheon and ruined my team with it. I'll never play again because I hated how it made me feel. To put your heart into a match, do the best you can and still fail because 200-year meme, or lose because your team was AFK, fighting among themselves, not cooperating, not focusing on team play like the game is meant to be played, like the pros. Partly that was my fault, taking the game too seriously. Maybe voice chat could have fixed some of these problems, but even if they improved, even if they bring back versatility in builds, even if they fixed everything, it still wouldn't capture the magic it had before. The fun of going full gold per 5 runes bank plank, or getting that one lucky crit with your single crit rune, playing AP Ashe just so you can hit 800 damage from across the map. But I'm better for it. I've grown to not take games so seriously, enjoy the game for what it is, and to anyone frustrated and grinding rank trying to improve, it's not worth it. Find other games. Find games you've never played. Play games you've missed. Expand and stop sticking to one game that doesn't bring you joy anymore. If you ever win a game and think, thank God it's over, I think it's time to move on.